Welcome everyone to the training webinar series, Setting Up Templates in Encompass with the Appointment Scheduler Functionality presentation. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to your questions throughout the presentation. You can enter them by clicking on the Q&A icon on the top of your screen. My name is Tara Brown, and it is my pleasure to be with you today to introduce Junko Holly Burgess. Junko has more than 10 years of healthcare IT experience. She is a functional expert in Infinity Encompass and holds a bachelor's degree in business management and an associate's degree in business administration. Junko is passionate about bridging the gap between technology and people by providing engaging education. She loves the beach, traveling, and gardening. Welcome, Junko.
Thank you, Tara, for that introduction. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for today. We will be covering setting up templates in Encompass with the appointment scheduler functionality. So with that being said, let's get started. Before we jump into our session, Before we jump into our scheduling templates, it's first important to understand that we need to set up our resource hours first before setting up our resource template. So the first thing we'll do is go into our administration, which is either over to the right or bottom left. And now we have to go into our office configuration top left and choose our office location. So I'll choose my Surfside Optical. Then we have to access the resource schedule, which lives on your header in schedule, resource schedule, or down below underneath the schedule column for your resource schedule. All right, so this is where the setup takes place for our resource hours in addition to our template. This first tab that we're on is our hour setup, which is what we have to set up first. And our resources pull from over here to the right. So as we can see, it defaulted to our first provider, which is our Barfield provider. He already has a template set up. The other provider that we'll be working with today is our test provider, which we can see this provider does not have anything filled out as of yet for the hours setup. So before we jump into test, let's go back to Barfield and just take a look at how the template looks so far. The description that we see right here shows us normal hours week 1, basically meaning that this provider works regular hours during the week. There's no deviations, there's no specific restrictions or requirements to their hour availability. So the provider sets up when they want to provide services in the office. What you see in pink shows what's currently available. Sorry if my screen is jumping all over, but you can see your legend down here at the bottom. So pink represents the providers not available, but those are the office hours that we specified in our admin setup. Okay, so if you start from the top, basically our office hours are open from 8, which will so I'll start here in pink, 8 to 5. Okay, but our provider is only available from 8 to 12 in blue. Okay, again, the legend will show you the availability. So now, if the provider also wanted to take a break in between, so let's just say 8 to 12, he works, but then he takes a lunch between 12 and 1, then starts seeing patients again from 1 to the end of the day, we could add the availability at the end of the day. Okay, so for this one, I'll say he's taking a break, and then let's say he only works from 1 to 3. You could either right click, add availability, and it puts a little block here. Then you can drag and drop it down to the time slot that you want available. Or let me right click, delete. If I fill in by dragging and dropping, left clicking, drag and drop down from 1 to 3, it'll highlight that time slot for me here. And then I also can right click add or bottom left add availability, and it'll fill in that time slot for me. Okay, so now the schedule reflects on Mondays, the provider works from 8 to 12, takes a break between 12 and 1, and then it works from 1 to 3. Okay, let me just delete this to make it a cleaner calendar for our provider. So that's our Barfield Providers Resources. Just wanted to show you, since this is already preset, how it'll look. Now let's jump into our test provider so that we can have a clean slate on our hours template. And we are going to say that this particular provider works from 8 to 3 every day. Okay, so I'll again fill in the 8 o'clock slot, drag and drop it down to the 3 o'clock slot. Actually, let me take that, say to 3. Again, right click, add availability. So now our provider is available Mondays from 8 to 3. I'll complete the same steps and add availability for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Sorry, and we'll say they work Monday through Thursday, off on Fridays. Okay, so now we have availability Monday through Thursday, 8 to 3. Now, let's say this provider works rotating weeks or alternate weeks. So for the first week, they work 8 to 3, but then the second week, maybe they work 8 to 5, the full office hours. What you would do is create a rotation setup here to the right. You will specify when you want the work rotation week to start. So we're just going to default it to today to stay we're starting it this week. You can't go in the past, so it has to be current date on. And then your number of rotating weeks. So if every week it differs, then you can choose those weeks here. I'm just going to say every other week we rotate, so I'll leave it at the 2-week rotation. And then I'll go ahead and hit save. What that does now is in the description places another week into my description. So now I'm able to alternate to specify what my hour availability is going to be by that week. Since we already set up week 1, let's set up week 2. All right, so for week 2, we're going to say that we're in the office the full day. So again, we can drag and drop, add availability, but notice we also have a fill availability option. So which is here right clicking, or bottom left, you have fill availability as well. And filling the availability means that it fills the availability of that provider for the entire business day. Okay. Remember, our office hours are 8 to 5, but our original or our provider normally works 8 to 12 or 9 to 1 or however, which represents in blue. If the provider is there the full business hours, all we have to do is click fill and it fills it in for the full business day. If we want to adjust it, we can still adjust it accordingly, even though we hit fill. But again, it fills it for that entire day. So we'll say for week 2, the provider is going to be in the office for the entire day. Right? Now, and we'll take a look at your online scheduler in a second. So if you guys are signed up for online scheduler where the patients can make their own appointments by way of your website, then I'll show you how that looks, put visuals to that so that you can see what those alternating schedules look like and how that template transfers over to your online scheduler. All right. So we have a week 1 rotation again at 8 to 3, and then our week 2, we are going to work 8 to 5. That is your rotation. The range setup is a way for you to set up your range of a time frame, meaning if during the week of Christmas I'll just delete this just so we can have a clean slate. But if we want specific hours during the holiday week, we can select that date range and specify when we want to work those hours. So over to the right, if I click on to add date range, I am going to title this My Holiday Hours. Okay. And we'll range started on the week of Christmas, which is the 22nd. We are going to end it on the 26th, and then I'll hit save. All right. So that creates our holiday hours for that week. Once you're done there, you'll hit return. Now, if I go back up to my description, in addition to week 1 and 2, I have my holiday hours that I can flip over to, shows me that date range that I created. And now I can specify when am I going to be available, or when is this provider going to be available for the week of Christmas. Since Christmas Eve falls on Wednesday, we'll say that we're only working Monday and Tuesday that week. Pretty easy week. We don't want to do much. So we're only working 8 to 12. So I'm going to again highlight, drag, and drop it down to the 12 slot, add availability. And then same thing for Tuesday, add availability. All right, pretty easy, light week for us on Christmas. Okay, so now we have our setup, our hour setup for this provider. Week 1, again, 8 to 3 to recap. Week 2, 8 to 5. And then during the holiday week, we're only working Monday and Tuesday, 8 to 12. We will pause here for a second. Let me go ahead and jump into our online scheduler. So this is our site that we have created for our online appointments. And down here at the bottom, I'll click on schedule appointment. Okay. We'll book an appointment for our patient or ourself and choose our location. Here we have a couple of options of how we can create our appointment. I'll just choose new patient for this one. You have your insurance option, so I'll just choose, if I know my insurance, I can add it in. My provider is defaulted based off of my login, and then continue. Or sorry, based off of my provider's availability. Now here's the calendar. So as we can see, this is what your patients will see when they're booking their own appointments. We're defaulted to today, which is our week 1 that we just set up in our template. And if you look at our hour availability, we're open from 8, or we're available from 8. This one shows 8 to 3 today. Okay. And so if we go to week 2, remember we alternated our schedule. So this one opens it up. Now we can see we're open from 8 to 5 with 4:30 being our last appointment. That's our alternating schedule for week 2. We also created that range for our holiday week. So as we look at the calendar, notice Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are grayed out. We only see Monday and Tuesday. So if I click onto Monday, I'm only here, my provider is only here 8 to 12. Okay, so we can see how that template now reflects over into the online scheduler. So as we update the template, the scheduler also gets updated as well according to those availabilities. All right, let's jump back into admin. And now that we have our resource hours set up, now we're able to jump into our service template. Okay. The setup is pretty similar to the resource hours that we just set. So it opens it up a little more because we can see each time slot increment in 10-minute increments here. You can change your view of this template. So if you choose show 24 hours, it just gives you a different view of the schedule, a 24-hour view. Or you can choose show business hours and just see business hours only. Okay, so this is your preference. Now, when you're ready to update your service template, notice at the bottom, just like in the hour setup, you had your fill and add. Now you have add and edit. Okay. So when we want to determine what type of template we want to set up, we're going to add the template. And once we add it, we can always edit it. Now, let's just say this particular provider, let me flip back to week 1. Let's just say this particular provider is on Mondays. It's a pretty easy day. We don't want any restrictions. We're flexible about what patients we like to see in our office. So we're going to keep it really vague and allow our staff and our patients to book any appointments necessary for Mondays. So what I'll do is on Monday, you can click into any time slot. Again, right click add template or add template bottom left. You'll get this pop up here. So what you'll do is title the actual template. Now I have some already pre-populated here, but you can title it whatever. So if you want to, if you didn't see any of these here and this was going to be, I'll just say we're going to see new and established patients. We don't have a preference on who we want to see. So I'll do new/established just to give us a template so that your staff members can see what is going to be allowed to be booked in those slots. Now, if you don't create a template, the availability shows for the provider for us to schedule appointments, but it just shows as open availability. Creating this template and specifying these time blocks and availabilities allows your staff to see what can and cannot be scheduled in those time blocks. Okay, so it's up to you if you want to create them or not. Again, we can still schedule appointments. This just helps keep it more simplified. Okay, so we'll let our staff know, hey, we can see anybody on Monday. So I'll title it new and established. And then my description, I have a new and established as well. New slash EST is what you see as your name for your appointment type in your calendar. Okay. The service group right below that is optional. So you can or you don't have to enter in a service group. But the purpose of the service group is to allow you to set recommendations and or limit the services offered on the resources schedule. Okay. For this one, we're going to leave it blank. I'll show you when we create our second schedule how that service group looks. So right now, since Mondays are really flexible, we'll make it really simple and leave out the service group. We'll also circle back to restricting the template as well. All right. Our start time is going to be 8 o'clock a.m. for this template with a duration of 30 minutes for our appointment. You can alter this. So if it's 20 minutes for your appointments, you can change it to 20 minutes. And then your minutes between services is if you want to require time blocks in between appointments, meaning from 8 to 8:20, we're going to see a patient, and then we want to have a 10-minute break in between. Okay. Then our end time will end at the end of the day. If you want to adjust when you want that actual template to end, so maybe you only want to see all patients from 8 to 12, and then 12 to 3, you want to see specific patients, you can alter it that way. So we're just going to push it out to the end of the day. Then I'll hit save. Right. Now, if we look at the template, we can see those blocks entered in throughout the day with that 10-minute break in between. Okay, so it just allows a little wiggle room for patients that may require a little more hand holding or however, you're free to adjust your template accordingly. Now, if I right click and edit, let's just say we don't want blocks in between. We're going to set that to 0 with our services remaining at 20-minute duration. So let me save that update. And now this is how it'll populate. So we don't want any breaks in between patients. We're going back to back to see all these patients throughout the day. Okay, so it sets it up with no breaks from 8 to, and it missed the rest of our day, but let me see. It doesn't give us our full day. All right. Well, let me see let me make sure my resource hours. Oh, because we're here till 3. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Week 1, 8 to 3. Yep. And then service template 8 to. Still not filling in. My apologies for the glitch. But here we can see that the time slots are, sorry, the templates are populated here for Mondays. Now, let's just say on Tuesdays, we want to be a little bit more restrictive with our schedule. So on Tuesday, if I add the template, let's say we want to have alternating visits on Tuesdays. So on Tuesdays, we want to see new patients first, and we'll just do new patient exams as our description. For this one, we will create a service group. So if I click onto service group, let me just delete these ones I already created. Oh, actually, it's not in here. Okay, so if I hit new over to the right, this is going to allow me to choose the service group. Again, it's a way to create recommendations and set limits on the services offered for that visit type. So since we're creating the template for new patients, we can specify what services we want correlated to our new patients. So you can go through and choose any codes that you want linked and recommended for that specific visit type. All right. You can choose however many, however less. It's totally up to you. And then once you make your selections, I am going to title this new just to have a new title and then hit save. All right. So you'll see a list of all of your pre-selected options. If I choose new and edit, that'll take me back to where I was just at to select or deselect and add anything additional or remove. Okay. Once I create my service group, I'll choose the one I created, which is the new. Then I'll hit save at the bottom left. That populates my service group in for me. And now what happens is, and I'll show you guys in a second, but once we get to the actual appointment calendar, when you have a service group linked, when you create the appointment for the patient, there it's going to show as the recommended service groups that we selected off. So it'll say these three codes, it's what's preferred, but then you'll also have the additional service codes available below to flip to if you need to. Now, if we chose this restrict template to service group option, then we won't get to see the additional service groups on that list. It restricts it solely to the options that we had selected on that service group list. Okay, and I'll actually leave it restricted again so I can show you guys how that populates. The start time again is going to be from 8 to 3. We'll leave the duration of services as 30 minutes. We are going to put a 20-minute block in between each of those appointments because we are going to allow for the established visit patients to rotate throughout the day as well. Okay, so first appointment is going to be new patient. I'll hit save. That creates my new patient slots for 30 minutes, and then I have these blank spots to fill in additional appointment types throughout the day. So now when I go to the blank spot, I can highlight that area. I can click into it one time, right click, and add the template. This particular template is going to be my established patients. All right, again, we're creating an alternate schedule. The description for here, we can do returning patients for comprehensive exams. We're also going to choose a service group and choose our established. So let me, since this is already here, I'll just edit it just so you guys can see how it looks. But here are all of your established options. Here you can again go through and choose what visits or what services you want linked to that specific visit. Right? So I'll choose established and then hit save bottom left. That adds the service group there for me. We do want to restrict this as well. Tuesdays, we're being really specific on who we want to see. Okay, the start time is going to default to 8:30 because remember our new patients appointments run from 8 to 8:30. So this one is going to actually start at 8:30, but our duration of services, established patients don't take as long, so we're going to see them for 20 minutes. But we want to alternate. So remember, new patients have that 30-minute time. So we want to make sure our minutes between reflect 30 so that it doesn't overlap with our new patient appointments. The end time is just defaulted to 9 because it's only creating one block. But again, you can take it out to the end of the day, change the time, and then hit save bottom left. Now, what that does is alternates our schedule. So now we can see new patients from 8 to 8:30, alternating with established patients, new patients, established patients. So we have the flexibility to specify who we want to see on what day and what time. You can continue on to creating those templates. I will right click onto Tuesday. Let's just say for the rest of the week, the provider wants to keep that same schedule. So you do have a copy option. So if I click onto copy template, it's going to tell you that the template information is saved and can now be pasted. So, okay. And then I go to Wednesday. I'm going to click on Wednesday's date, right click, paste template. It's going to paste the exact same template from Tuesday. So I'll leave everything here unless there's any specific deviations you like to make. And then I'll hit save. This is just a recommended warning. So it's telling us that the template name already exists, which we know we're copying it. So we're just going to accept it and say yes. Now that pastes Wednesday to look like Tuesday, and we might as well go ahead and finish on Thursday. So I'll jump to Thursday and also save it on Thursday. Now we have to go to our second part of the template, which is the established patients. We're going to do the same thing. So I'll copy the template for Tuesday, hit OK, and click into Wednesday, paste the template, making sure your template hours reflect. So we want to take this out for the full day and save. Yes. All right. So now Wednesday is done. Same thing for Thursday. Adjust our time and save. And yes. All right. So recapping, Monday looks fairly open. We can see any patients. Tuesday, we're alternating. Wednesday and Thursday, same. And we're off on Fridays, so nothing reflects in Fridays. Okay. That is our week 1. If we jump to week 2, because remember in our hour setup, we specified that this provider has rotating weeks. So when is our provider, or what will our provider be? Who will our provider be seeing on week 2? Week 2, we're pretty open, so we're not going to do anything special. So we'll just say that we're adding a general template for, actually here, let's do this. Week 2, let's say normally our provider works 8 to 4 or 8 to 5. But from 8 to 11, we only want to see medical emergencies only. We're providing the opportunity, maybe, we have a medical demographic and we only want to cater to a specific type of patients, visit types from 8 to 11. We can create a block that prevents patients from scheduling any appointments from 8 to 11 on the online scheduler, but allows the staff members in the office to still have access to the calendar from 8 to 11 to schedule any medical emergencies or however. So again, I'll show you guys in a second. But for this one, let's just title this one medical. And we'll say medical ER only. For the service group, it is not required again, but I am going to choose service group. Let's just say medical wasn't here. I would create a new group, title it medical, and then you don't have to choose any service levels here because again, those visits aren't linked to specific services. This just creates the block for the service, for the appointments, okay? So I'll just hit save here, choose medical that I created, and then hit save. All right, so now we have that restriction there. I am going to restrict this template so that, again, nothing can be deviated from that 8 to 11 restriction. It is going to start at 8 o'clock with the duration. We can do a 30-minute duration as well, or you're going to set how whatever the time frame is for your patient's visits for those medical appointments. We won't leave any minutes between services. We can see those patients back to back from 8 to 11. Okay. And then, of course, in time, we have to adjust this to our 11 a.m. slot. And let's save bottom left. All right. It jumps back to week 1. So we just have to rotate to week 2. And now I can look at the calendar and see the medical blocks from 8 to 11. Pause here for a second. Let's jump back into our scheduling app. And we'll create an appointment, choose our location and our visit, continue. All right. So notice now here is that block that we put in for week 2, which starts next week. And notice how the patient isn't able to see any appointments up until 11 o'clock. So between 8 and 11, it's blocked off. But we are normally in the office for that time. Okay. So this is how that template again transfers over to your online scheduler by creating that block, prevents any patients from booking any appointments during that time slot. Once we get to the calendar, I'll show you how we can still see those time slots available on the staff side to still schedule appointments. All right, so jumping back into Encompass, we have those medical blocks created. Let's go ahead and copy this to save. So again, right click copy. We're going to copy this for the rest of the week as well. All right. And then Thursday, last day, 11, save. And yes. Okay. So now week one, again, to recap, shows what we set up for week one with the alternating schedules, normal days on Mondays. Week two shows the medical blocks between 8 and 11, and then open availability for the rest of the day. Okay. We'll leave this open so I can show you guys what it looks like on the calendar when you don't choose a template block. Now that we have the template set for week two, let's set our template for our holiday week because remember, we specified that we're only working Mondays and Tuesdays on the week of Christmas. So if you're open to seeing any patients that week, again, you don't have to choose anything on your template. It'll be an open schedule. If you want staff to specifically know what needs to be scheduled in for those days, you want to create those blocks to specify. Right? We won't overkill because we already created templates for week one and week two. So that'll give us enough to be able to now jump into the calendar to simulate scheduling an appointment for the patient. All right, so now I'll jump over to my patient's record. So let me search for my patient over to the right. And let's use good old Bobby. All right, I will go over to appointments on the left-hand panel, but you can also access your appointment calendar on the top header, clicking on appointments and appointment calendar. Okay, so either way takes you to the calendar. Now, my default is my Barfield provider. If we look all the way over here to the right. So before we jump into the actual scheduling of patients, let's just kind of do a brief overview of how your appointment calendar presents. If you look over to the far left here, you have these little two fly out arrows. So if I click onto there now, it shows me that I don't have a patient selected because I went to the appointment calendar directly from appointments appointment calendar. So it doesn't know which patient to link it to. Let me just go back to patients and then let me research my patient. Now, if I choose appointments from the patient's chart, it takes me to the appointment screen here. And to the right, if I click onto plus appointment, it now links the patient over here to the left in your sidebar to the actual calendar. Okay. In the event that you guys did create the appointments from the calendar, it'll allow you to choose the patient once you solidify or once you choose the appointment slot. Okay, so the sidebar shows you a brief snapshot of your patient information. We can see our patient name, which is a hyperlink, so that takes you to the patient's chart. We have the little pin here, so if there's any pins we want to put, I put prefers morning appointment, so you can create a pin if there's something specific that we want to be aware of for the patient's appointments. And if any demographic information is incorrect or needs to be updated, clicking on the little head and shoulders icon will open up your patient details. So we can jump right to the demographics tab. And as we're talking to the patient to make the appointment, we can update their demographics here right away. You also have your insurance tab to verify if the patient had any insurances. If the patient did not have any insurances, we could then add the insurance from here. Now, personal recommendation is if you know the patient's insurance, you could add it manually here. If it's something that you have to check VSP for, I always recommend creating the appointment first and then going back to run the eligibilities for a VSP because what happens is if you run it right now in the calendar, let's just say we had a time slot already selected that we wanted to save, running those eligibilities kicks you out of the calendar, allows you to create those eligibilities, but then you'll have to return back to the calendar to rebook an appointment for that patient. So you will lose that time slot. Okay, so I always just add the insurance manually. Let's just say any insurance for this one for now. I'll choose IMED. And then over to the right, let me add in the insured ID numbers and we'll say it's for self. Okay. Again, you have a save and view eligibility at the bottom right, but I'm just going to hit save so that I can start creating that appointment so I don't lose that time slot. So let me hit save. It just adds the IMED plan in. Once we're done creating the appointment, then we can go into the patient's chart to add the correct eligibilities. If you know them right away, you do have an eligibility tab here. We can add them right away. All right, so I can select off what the patient qualifies for. Then I can hit save, bottom right. Then that automatically provides the eligibility for the patient. All right, I'll close out of here, top right, and back over to that sidebar over to the far left. Again, you have other brief information in here that you can take a snapshot or take a look at for your patient. Going to the top of the screen from left to right, right now it's defaulted to the calendar view of today. And we're looking at the week view on the calendar, which is what you're seeing to the left. So the week of the 7th to the 13th gives us the week view for this one specific provider over to the right. If you wanted to see the availability of your other resources, like for instance, our test provider we just created, we can flip the resource accordingly. We can also flip the office number. So if you have multiple locations, you can choose which offices and resources you would like to see. In addition to the week view, you have your week team view. So you're looking at a glance for the week for your entire team. So all our providers' schedules show together. You can also look at the view by day only, which shows all providers as well for the day. And then you also have your book view. And the book view is just a way to look at your availabilities in a list form. So to the left, we can see the times for those exams and the providers. We can also see the service types presented to the right. Okay, so let's just say for this one, let's say our patient wanted to be booked at 11 o'clock on this day. If we use our book view, notice how our time slot only says established patients only. So we only want to restrict established patients. If I click onto that plus to the left, let me pull up my patient here and choose Bobby. All right. Then my service type. So the lock, when you see the lock locked, it means that that appointment type was restricted. Pause for a second. Let's jump back to admin. Remember here, when we set the restrictions for that type, that's what causes the lock to populate on the calendar. So it lets us know this is a service type that is restricted to only what we selected, meaning when we choose the service type drop down, notice how we're only limited to the service types we specified we want it linked to that visit. Okay. When we get to creating another appointment, you'll see how you'll have access to all of the other visits based off of that template type. So I'll choose my service level. My vision insurance automatically populates because or automatically shows because we entered that ahead of time. And we'll leave medical blank. The resource is going to be my test provider. Pre-appointment is going to be if you're creating the appointments ahead of time before the actual recall is due of the appointment. We can set it as a pre-appointment, but not a requirement. The appointment date is defaulted to the day we selected in addition to the appointment time. So now that even though you chose that appointment time from the book view, if you wanted to still adjust your appointment time, you're more than welcome to adjust it accordingly. You can also override your appointment duration. So if again this patient needs a little bit more hand holding, we know that they take longer than 20 minutes. We can give them a full hour for their appointment and then we'll hit save at the bottom right. Right? So at the book of view, it shows our patient, Bobby, scheduled here at 11 o'clock for their level 2 office visit. Okay, we can see statuses, insurance information, and then you have the action all the way to the far right where you could view and edit information, confirm, check in, reschedule, all of the goodies. If I flip my view back to the week view, I can also see the patient there on the schedule as well for that time slot or for that hour slot. Okay. Again, with this view, if you right click, it'll show you those same options as action presented in the book view, where you can edit, reschedule, delete, copy, and all of the goodies. Going back up to the top of your screen, Find Open is going to allow you to find an appointment specific to the patient's preference or what you know is available. So it's just a quick way to search for specific appointments. Now, let's just say, for instance, the patient is only available on Mondays and Tuesdays. So we can choose that we only need to see what's available Mondays and Tuesdays. Every other day doesn't matter because our patient isn't available. So we're going to select off Mondays and Tuesdays, and maybe they're only available in the morning. So we'll also choose morning appointments. These are our filters that we're setting to search for open appointments with those filters. With that set, I'll go ahead and hit search over to the right. And then it shows me a list of all of the available appointments with that preference on Mondays and Tuesdays in the morning. Okay. So from this list, we can inform our patient, hey, our provider has the 15th at 11, 11:30, 16th at 11, 11:30. Once the patient chooses that time, we can select it from the list. Again, same steps. We're choosing the service type. Notice the service type does not have that lock that we just saw previously. Okay. And that's because we don't, for this time slot or this particular day, we don't have specifications on that template. So we're able to see every single service type from that list. All right. So I can choose my service type. Again, you can choose your vision insurance. I'll leave everything as is, and then I'll hit save over to the right. All right. That appointment was booked on the 15th. So if I change my view to the following week, uh-oh. Oh, here it is. Okay. Here is my appointment. All right. Again, we'll talk about these blocks in a second, but just wanted to show you guys what these tabs mean at the top. So find appointment is to find specific appointments. Your legend just gives you the brief description here as what we saw when we were in our resource setup, just shows you what the colors represent. Move over to the right of that will allow you to move patients from one day to the other. So let's just say my test provider has appointments on the 15th, our Bobby Flay patient. But our provider is not going to be in the office that day. Maybe they have something that came up and they won't be able to be in the office. We can move those patients over to another day for the same provider. So I'll just choose the 16th, same resource. You'll choose all of the patients or however many patients you want to move over, and then move appointments to the selected date, and it moves it over for you. You could also click move. Let's just say that particular provider won't be in at all that week. Then we could choose we can choose whatever day we need to change it to, if it's going to be the same day. And then you can also choose a new resource to transfer it to. Okay, so he has deviations on his, but that's why you're getting that items to review. But if Dr. Barfield says, hey, send all the patients over to me, then we can choose our new provider, select all of the patients that are going to be transferred over, and then bottom right, we're going to move that patient or those patients. So it removes it from our test provider schedule. And now if I click on my resource top right, choose my Barfield provider, now my patient reflects on that provider's schedule. Okay, so a quick way to move your patients. Over to the far right already, we talked about resources. So this is if you want to see a specific resources calendar, you can choose it here. Office location, and then the three dots all the way to the far right, you can print out your appointment list for your patients. And then you also have your resource settings as well. Resource settings allows you to pick and choose what resources you want to see on the calendar. So if we only wanted to see our Barfield and test provider, we're going to deselect the others, then hit save. That allows us to only have access to our Barfield provider and our test provider. Okay. All right. Moving along to the actual calendar. Now, when we look at Barfield's calendar, notice on Mondays, his new patient slot reflects the lock. Again, that means that this is a restricted appointment type. So if I chose to create an appointment in that specific section, I'm only going to see my restrictions available. Let me cancel out of here. With the open lock option for this established patient slot, if I wanted to make an appointment there. Let me pull up play again. Okay, notice how it offers you your preferred time. So because we chose those service groups, the service groups are recommended populate first, and then all of the other service groups populate as well because we didn't restrict it to the service groups. Okay. So restricting it puts the lock on it, only offers you what you selected. Setting the service group with no restrictions gives you a recommended list in addition to your additional services. All right. So we can choose a service visit for this one. Again, vision insurance and save. All right. So I have an appointment there for my Bobby patient. When you look at the schedule, let me flip over to our test provider schedule. Notice how, remember we set those medical blocks from 8 to 11 on week 2 for that provider. So again, we looked at online scheduler to see and verify that these times were blocked from the patient's prevent or creating any appointments. But it is still showing as an open availability. So as a staff member, we do still have the option of choosing, sorry, that was in the past, of choosing that time slot and still booking an appointment for our patient, right? So it does not restrict us. It just prevents the patients on the online scheduler from seeing time slots from 8 to 11. The rest of the day is pretty open. So again, from then on, we can book anything. The patient can book anything they like if they prefer. All right. So that is creating appointments. Last thing I'll show you is if we went to our appointment here, let's just say we want to book the 17th at 8. I'll continue booking my appointment. Let me enter in all of my pertinent information. All right. And then I'll book the appointment at the bottom right. So this is how the patient is. Of course, it's already booked. Let me choose a new time. Okay. And now the appointment has been scheduled. So this is the verification your patient will get when they are scheduling their appointment. Now, if we jump back onto the appointment calendar, sorry, 17th should show our appointment and it's not showing our appointment. Okay, here we go. So here is our appointment for our patient. When the appointment is scheduled online, you're going to see the little cloud icon that lets you know that this appointment was scheduled online. Okay. You'll also see a couple of little indicator icons as well, which different icons just, represent different scenarios on your appointment calendar. But this one particularly, hold on one second, sorry. My apologies. This one particularly, again, the cloud means that it was booked online, and then the N means the appointment has notes. Okay. Um, Now, if you click onto the actual appointment itself, over to the left on the sidebar, if you look down at the bottom, here's where your notes will populate. Okay, so it just enters in a note for you when they create the appointment online, let you know that it was scheduled online, and if there were any consents or texts also linked to that. There will be other icons listed as well. So just depending on the stage of the appointment, if it's confirmed, it shows a C, checked in, it shows an I. So just depending on the stage of that appointment will determine what the icons represent. And right clicking on any appointment again gives you those options to reschedule, copy, edit, or however. So let's just say this patient also needs another appointment for whatever reason. We always have the option of copying this appointment as well and then pasting it to another day. So if we needed to make another appointment for that patient, we can copy and paste it to another appointment day. And it creates the appointment right away, really quick for the patient. All right, so we have our a couple of patients schedule. Again, you can see the difference between when the appointment is scheduled online versus when we schedule it in the office. It represents with the cloud icon. And last thing I'll show you guys is our help topics section. So right here at the very top is our help topics. I always refer to this as like our Encompass Bible. So if you guys ever have any questions, need any additional clarity, want to know how to learn and navigate Encompass, this is always going to be your go-to. We have our popular topics in the middle, so you can choose specific topics. You have a navigation panel over here to the left where you can pick and choose specific topics as well, in addition to the videos at the bottom left. So if you prefer to learn more in video form, we also have those available as well. Today we talked about service templates. So if you go up to your search at the top right, you can type in any keyword here. I can type in service, and it gives me 114 results regarding service. But we can go through this list and choose what we want to see. So we talked about setting up appointment services. Um, we talked about setting up templates and administration. So you can go through this and just gain additional clarity about anything we talked about today, even the appointment calendar. So if I go to, I'll just type in calendar. Okay, and we can see appointment calendar preferences, again, setting up the scheduler, scheduling and canceling appointments. So a plethora of information lives in our help topics. So feel free to use this to your advantage. With that being said, that concludes our my part of the presentation for today. Any questions, Tara, that you can see?
We don't have any questions that came in. If you're looking for more training, check out our other learning options such as documentation, tutorials, walkthroughs, role-based training webinars, one-on-one virtual, on-site training, and or consultations. You can learn more at ifinity.com/education. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Junko, for your time and valuable information you shared with us today. And thank you all on the line for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. This concludes our presentation.